Hello everybody. We are doing a video series, an AoM update video series. Actually, we're doing an AoM update video series where I'm going to talk to guest speakers from the community and we're going to talk about the state of AoM. We're going to talk about different platforms, balance changes in the competitive scene, drama in the community. We can get into scenarios and mods and all that fun stuff. Doesn't matter. We're gonna, cover whatever people want to have covered. So for this first episode, I'm going to be talking to Hagrit and Joe about competitive and balance and meta issues, not issues, sorry, comparing extended edition meta and the competitive scene with Voobly, meta, and the competitive scene, right? We're going to include some patch info and whatnot. Yeah, so that's what the main chunk of the video is going to be about. I'm streaming this simultaneously, so if there's people that are watching the stream that also have some questions, we'll do a mini Q&A session at the very end, and then we'll wrap it up. So, yeah, if we're going to be looking at like change logs and whatnot for the two games, but if, after that, I'm probably going to jump into watching some old Magyar versus AoM King recorded games just for some visual stimulation. And yeah, that's that. So, first of all, Hagrid. Hagrid is a well, I'll let you do your little introduction for yourself once more. I know there was some technical difficulties that we encountered, so we're repeating a little bit, but whatever, it's happening. So go ahead,
Yeah.
Hagrid. The floor is yours.
Well, I'm known as Hagrit, and I've been playing for maybe 4 years. I started playing on EE maybe about a year and a half after EE was released. I'm a medium level player currently. I was better before, but anyway. I do a lot of modding and map scripting as well as playing Supremacy, and that's about my history with AoM. Keeping it brief.
Cool, excellent. Joe, what do you got for us?
So yeah, I've been about since the start of like ESO, but I didn't really play online much at that point. I stuck to single player, and I only really got into the multiplayer when I discovered Voobly about 5 years ago, and I briefly played there, but I didn't really enjoy it too much. And then eventually, when I saw Extended Edition being released on Steam, I bought that straight away, and I played that quite a bit. And this ended up meeting players like Hagrid and playing with him, and eventually I realised that Voobly had more of the competitive scene, so I ended up moving back to Voobly, and that's where I play pretty much all the time now.
Okay. Thank you, the both of you, for joining me. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Whatever, it is what it is. We're moving on. Um, okay. So Hagrid's a little bit more familiar. In fact, Hagrid's very familiar with the with patch notes and whatnot for Extended Edition and Tail of the Dragon on Steam. And Joe, I'm sure both of you guys are knowledgeable on the Voobly balance patch changes. So let's first talk about some of the main changes for Extended Edition / Tail of the Dragon. Then we can talk about Voobly and then kind of compare the two. So tell us the main highlights for Extended Edition, Haggart.
Alright, so I'll skip bug fixes for now. We'll just go straight into balance changes.
Oh, first of all, also, just why don't you introduce this actual website? And again, I'll post it, I'll again include it in the YouTube video. Here it is in the chat, just in case anybody wants it for reference, if you guys are still watching. Anyways, yeah, what actually is this website?
Oh, it's Forgotten Empires is a team of modders / developers for AoE 2, which have been hired to make the Chinese DLC as well as the balance changes that came with it. And this is their site, which is obviously mostly AoE 2 related.
Yeah, they focus on Age of Empires, but they've done some AoM work for us. Anyways, go ahead.
So the main changes I wanted to get into was for Egyptian. They have a change which reduces Pharaoh damage by 50%, and getting Hands of the Pharaoh restores this back to normal, and Hands of the Pharaoh being in Classical Age available. This means that early aggression with the Pharaoh in early Classical Age is not as viable anymore, which is a pretty important aspect as to why Egyptian is so strong.
Seems like Egyptian, from what I remember, it's been I should give a little introduction for myself. It's been, for anybody that doesn't know who I am, I've been been a member of the community for a long time, but I've taken a handful of years off of playing Age of Mythology, and I've recently built a sweet new rig and come back. So all of this stuff most of this stuff is new to me. Um, I do remember though, before I left, Egyptian players were playing very aggressive early game with, especially with Set and Shifting Sands, shifting the Pharaoh, free Myth unit if it's on the expansions, and doing some major damage. So me as a non-Egyptian player, I like this. I like this change because I'm by trade I'm a Norse player, and having an Egyptian army on your hunt at 4.5 minutes in the game, that's painful stuff. So Joe, I'm sure you love it. Don't you? Don't you love this
Yeah,
this change as well?
not such a big fan.
As our resident Egyptian, guest. Anyways, so yeah, a lot of people are probably going to agree with me that this is a good one, but the Egyptians probably don't. Egyptian players probably don't like this change at all. Also, has this change contributed to the metagame? Do you see Egyptian players still being really aggressive in Archaic and Classical?
Yes, but only Set. Not so much Ra or Isis at all. Ra just likes to boom. Isis likes to either boom or fast heroic. Set is often still played very aggressively, as intended, with the animals and stuff. So I don't think it even made that much of an impact for Set, because with Shifting Sands you get Wadjet, you get Priest and all the animals, to the point where the Pharaoh is only like 1/5 of your actual DPS. So reducing
Well,
that doesn't even
I think
change
the
all too
Pharaoh
much.
is still like your main damage dealer when you shift onto villagers. Like if you half his
Yeah,
damage, you're gonna kill less villagers. So what you might have killed 3 villagers before, now it's maybe 2.
that's still a good trade, I would say. I'd say that's fair.
It's quite a big difference though, and I think there's a lot of counterplay to the early Pharaoh harass.
Go on.
I think people just
Like what?
using your herdables early on, or walling up your base, building your temple defensively is like using it as a wall, and there's plenty of counterplay to keep the Pharaoh away from your economy. Maybe for Atlantean it's a little bit harder, but it's definitely possible.
Well, so Hagrid says that Set players are still really aggressive, right? And Set can just use the Shifting Sands, and I mean you can use your base. You can base build to wall yourself in, but Set can still shift an army at 4.5 minutes, or maybe even earlier. I mean, on your gold mine, or even on your wood, and for Norse and Greek, that's losing a couple of vills at 4.5 minutes. That's insanely detrimental. For one classical god power, I'd say that's super strong, and it's very likely that you'll get a couple of kills, and at the very least, you're doing a lot of crucial. You're forcing a lot of crucial idle time in a small eco.
And
But
while
if you
that's all
compare
going
it
on,
to other
you're
classical
getting
god powers, go on.
while that damage is going on, Set is able to just grab a town center regardless in the middle and have free hunt on most maps anyway.
True.
So it's like a double-ended thing. Like you're getting value from doing damage, plus you're still able to boom as well. It's a massive, massive thing.
But then you've got god powers like ceasefire and restoration, which are equally as strong, I would say, as shifting sands. I think there's a lot of counterplay, and you can predict where shifting sands is coming from, and there's definitely room to outplay it. It's definitely still strong. I'm not denying that, but I think people maybe complain about it a bit too much.
Do you think it's overhyped, the strength?
No, I definitely think it is one of probably one of the strongest god powers in the game.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Well, so-
Especially when you see some people, the plays that you can make where you can like shift so much of the enemy's army into your base and just kill it all for free.
True.
I think you can shift like 1,000 hit points worth of enemy army into your base.
That sounds about right. And I think it
Which is pretty-
progressively increases as you age up, right?
No, the way shifting sands actually works is
Oh no. Okay.
the more units that are in the radius of shifting sands, the more hit points there are, the more hit points it can shift. I don't know exactly how much. Like there's still some random number going on there.
Mhm.
But let's say you have an army of 4,000 hit points, you can shift maybe like even up to 2,000 HP. Whereas if you have an army of 1,000 hit points, you can maybe shift up to like 600, 500 HP of them.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty insane. Like especially early game against Norse or something. If you shift like that much army into your base and kill it all for free, like if you block
Yeah.
it incorrectly, it's just game changing. That basically wins the game right there.
Right. Well, so Joe, with that same meta, I mean, comparing EE and Voobly, that same competitive metagame, it's part of the competitive metagame, right? Still.
Yeah,
Early-
it happens
early
on
shifting
both
sands.
platforms, so I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably
so
less
on
so on
Voobly,
EE.
on Voobly you still get the shifting sands abuse definitely from set. I think most raw players probably don't abuse it since like Chemo stopped playing. I don't think we really see it at all. But
Oh,
I think
really?
he was one of the players that kind of made it like obvious that it was so broken, like the early Ra, like Pharaoh harass, because you can advance like 4 minutes with Ra and still get your second town center, just because you'll have your priests still empowering back at home.
Right.
So he was the player who made that sort of just quite evident how broken it was.
Well, so considering, kind of going back to the patch notes a little bit for Extended Edition, are there any other big patches or aspects of the patch for Extended Edition that contribute to the metagame? Specific differences in the metagame, rather.
Differences between Voobly.
Because a lot of this, we might be talking about a lot of the same thing. I mean, the game, Age of Mythology, has been around for a long time, so it doesn't really matter if you're playing on Game Ranger, Extended Edition, or Voobly. You're mainly, a lot of the highest level of competition. There's still a lot of similar strats, if not just straight up the same strats. So that kind of brought, I mean, Joe kind of mentioned that he's able to comment on that because it's played, the Shifting Sands is part of Voobly just as much as it is Extended Edition. So what else in the patch contributes to, I don't know, some differences that you're aware of?
Well, the Atlantean town centers, our stats have been normalized, which I guess reduces one of the billion options that Shifting Sands gives, which is Vil Rush. But yeah, that's probably one of the other major differences between EE and Voobly meta. Vil Rushes are still viable there, whereas on
Yeah.
EE it's basically not viable.
I mean, I think everyone except the Atlantean player likes to see Vil rushes.
I think that's right. Well, so are there a lot of people that still do Vil rushes? I mean, because I know that's a strong, at least on, let's see, on Voobly, it's still viable on Voobly. That's what we're saying. So are there still a lot of people that do it against it?
If I was in a serious game where I wanted to win, I would probably not take the risk. But if I was in a game where I wasn't too worried about winning, I'd probably be quite happy to do it just for a bit of entertainment.
So it's strong, but there's still risk.
Yeah, it's not like there's a lot of risk with it. It's not like a safe win.
I guess you are
Yeah, it's
shifting
not-
most of your entire economy over in their base. For anybody that doesn't know, a Vil Rush is when... So Set and Ra have the ability to use Shifting Sands. And so however quickly you're able to advance, you can... it's super powerful with Ra in that you can get the Skin of the Rhino upgrade, which increases your... I can't remember... Does it increase just hit points?
Armor and damage.
Armor and damage for Vils, right. So it's extra strong with Ra. I don't know if many people do it with set. You do get animals. Anyways, so you can get that upgrade if you're raw. Anyways, you get your classical myth unit, a whole bunch of vills in one little space. You shift him over to the Atlantean's base, and you take down the town center. And then if he doesn't resign, then you take his TC. You continue killing citizens and whatnot, and it's a little bit of a nightmare. So is that? It's not really on in serious games. It's still a bit of a cheesy strategy. That's what you're saying, Joe.
Yeah, it's definitely a cheesy strat. It's not something you'd probably see so much in competitive games.
Not really a tournament strategy. Well, I guess it could be a tournament strategy, depending on your how ballsy you are for a tournament.
Maybe not a straight up Vill Rush. I think strats like Mr. used against T2, that game on Oasis, like the legendary game, where he did a fast heroic and shifted on his base, used Ancestors to take the town center out, and played from there. I think stuff like that is definitely more viable.
Okay. What else? Anything else, Hagrit, that you can think of? Specifically that correlates with the patch? Or with, how Extended Edition has been patched?
Well, one thing that I guess is worth mentioning is actually Contarius, which I hadn't talked about before. Contarius have been overall buffed, and the upgrade for it to do bonus damage against buildings especially is like a major thing that people talked about, as well as on Voobly and EE. However, on Voobly it's been nerfed, although I don't think Joe thinks it's been nerfed enough, but alright. And on EE it's at max power, so that's still a major difference.
Okay.
Currently.
So the Contarius on EE are the same as what they were on Voobly?
I think they're even better, because they cost 10 food less to produce the Contarius.
Are they not like abused all the time?
Yeah,
Or
what
not
about their
so
stats?
I mean, I've definitely abused them a few times in team games.
Yeah, they're literally uncounterable in team games.
Are you talking hero Contarius or just Contarius?
Yeah.
In general.
So the Contarius got both normal and hero Contarius got some stat buffs, which is fine, but it becomes a problem when the hero Contarius are able to outrun their hard counters like Prodromos and Cavalry. And they're able to kill buildings because they have Lands of Stone, which does 200% bonus damage against buildings, and you can just raid around the map with hero Contarius, and they cannot be caught. They just destroy everything.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, unless you've got raw Osiris camels, you have no chance against them.
So that's a similarity between EE and Voobly.
Which has been addressed in Voobly, but not EE.
Yeah, Voobly have fixed it now.
Oh, so people still don't do it in team games, at least?
You still see them sometimes, but they're definitely not as strong as they used to be. Yeah, I think it's quite hard to pull them off now.
Because there was actually a bug because of this. Crenellations did not do bonus damage against hero Contarius, which nobody ever knew about until this strategy became a thing, which has been fixed now in Voobly, but obviously not in EE.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Anyway, that's mostly about team game balance, not so much 1v1.
Sure.
1v1 is not nearly as viable.
Okay,
although still decent sometimes.
Of course. What about well, is there any other notable things? Because if not, we can start talking about the Voobly balance patches, because we're kind of starting to touch on that more and more.
Yeah. Probably should just go to that, I guess.
Okay, well, so right now I'm gonna pause this record game and go to the balance patch notes on RTS Sanctuary. Here is, I'll copy paste this link into, there you go, into the chat as well. Anyway, so what are the main highlights for we're up to the Voobly balance patch. It's done. Who creates the balance patches? I'm led to I think it's mainly just Chrono, right? I'm sure he has a little bit of help.
No, I think it's all of the expert players like go together and talk about it. But I think Chrono's been the one who's actually done all the work, well, most of the work for it, and he's implemented it all on Voobly. But I don't think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I don't think Chrono's actually like created the balance changes himself.
No, but he just suggests them. So what I understand, because I've been looped in the 3.0 patch on At Your Sanctuary, I was part of the topic and I contributed occasionally.
Uh-huh.
The main people are Magic, Hell's Ravage, Chrono too. But there were some other people there as well, such as
Shelty, I imagine.
Shelty and I think Peggy as well. Omega
Pegasus was part of it.
He was, yeah.
Oh, that explains a
Because I
lot.
remember. All right. So at some point we had a stream, a Skype call stream with like the 5 of us. Well, one of them didn't make it, which was Miracle Man. He was supposed to represent Atlantean, but I don't think he was in the whole patch team.
Oh yeah, there was a
yeah.
patch team. Oh
yeah.
Is there still? Sorry.
I think those you guys created the 3.0 patch, but before that there was a lot more people contributed to it. I think like even Lorenzo and people.
Yeah,
were
so
part
in
of
the
patch
beginning,
team.
I think patch 1.01 and 02 were like mostly Nakamura. I think he started it all up a bit, getting people involved, and these patches are starting to become a thing. But 1.03, I don't even know who did 1.03 or 4 or 5.
I was under the impression
2.0.
that all of the expert staff were.
I mean, I'm sure
responsible for it.
many of them were involved. Yeah, definitely. But
well, so anyways, so what are the main features of, or at least that you think are the main features of this 3.0 patch, Joe?
3.0 wasn't actually like they didn't have many major changes. They
when
just
was it
kind
released,
of.
actually? When was it released?
This was
11/12/2018.
released.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
there you go.
a couple of
Top
months.
of the topic.
Yes, it's not been out very long, but the main change is they did like a few minor tweaks, like for example Greek that I can see here, the Forge of Olympus, like they made that a bit stronger than it used to be. So I think originally they nerfed that quite hard.
Really?
Yeah.
They made it. I think they made it cheaper, but the actual armory improvements were really expensive still.
Yeah, that's the mythic. That's the mythic upgrade for Hephaestus that makes armory upgrades. At least it did make them way cheaper. So
I think originally it was 75%, and then the patch team put it down to 50%, and now this patch has put it back to a 60% discount.
Okay. Well, so initially, how did that affect? Because 75 down to 50. How did that initially affect the metagame? Were people still playing Zeus and still going Hephaestus? Or
People still play Zeus, but you'd see a lot more hero gameplay and people going for the Lightning Storm.
There's another change about this tech that was very important for most Zeus players. It's the research time of the tech. It throws off the timing. So it used to research in 30 seconds. They changed it to 60 seconds to research it. Combined with the reduced effect, it made the tech not nearly as good as it once was.
Basically, Hephaestus was just pointless to take.
And now it's 45 seconds, so another halfway.
Because for certain matchups, like against like Isis, like that, those 30 seconds like make or break the game. Because like if you give Isis an extra minute of no pressure at that point, they'll have all the upgrades and they'll be able to contest you.
30. You think 30 seconds makes or breaks the game for armory upgrades?
Well, I've played a lot of games versus Pegasus, like another pretty strong Zeus player. And we did a lot of games on the patch and games on no patch, and I think, like, yeah, I think it definitely makes a big difference. Like you can see the impact it has between patch and no patch. Like on the patch, I'd take a lot more games off him than I would on no patch, and I think, well, obviously Bellerin also had a big issue, but.
It's not like that's the only change on the patch versus no patch, but still, it's a big.
Yeah, it's definitely a big impact. Yeah.
So, do you think it actually deterred people away from playing Zeus? Because Zeus is, especially on TT, Zeus is just like one of the staple gods, one of the main gods that people play.
I mean, I think people like with their mains, they're always going to play the same gods, but you
Sure.
saw a few more people starting to switch to Poseidon and a little bit of Hades, but mostly Poseidon, yeah.
Really? So it did have a little bit of an impact.
I think definitely against Egyptian as well. I think Poseidon is now probably more favored in that matchup, like against Isis as well.
Oh, really?
Because I think the meta now is just to go for full Hippocons most of the time, especially with the Centaur nerf. So there's not as much reason to take Zeus anymore.
Sure.
And also people like Earthquake as well. Like that's pretty strong for a strong push, especially
Well,
when Hephaestus was nerfed.
yeah, and I mean, I know Egyptians, for a long time, Egyptians, or rather Norse, haven't really been competitive at, the highest level. And so it's mainly been Zeus and Egyptians, and some Uranos, of course. So, what is the general dynamic in Greek against Egyptians on Voobly?
Well, it depends on the matchup, but I think
Of course, of course.
obviously Isis against Zeus, I'd say probably became a little bit more defensive with the Antithesis Eclipse nerf.
So Isis is more defensive.
But I think now they've boosted that nerf, they've changed it back, they've reversed it a bit, so it's kind of on a middle ground from what it should be and what it was. It's definitely viable now to go for the 1TC like all in sort of gameplay.
Straight up fast heroic push.
Yeah.
That's more vanilla game style or gameplay.
But against like Poseidon, like I wouldn't even go Ancestors Eclipse anymore. I would just take Anubis and probably just go for a 3-time center boom and do a bit of Anubite raiding.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think it's quite risky going for the all-in strategy. So I think just playing it safe and booming and trying to raid at the same time is probably the way to go.
And so I have two questions for you guys, but I'm gonna ask this one first. Do you guys see, speaking of all-in strategies, right? Do you guys see players playing a lot more safe, or do you see a lot more of these all-in strategies? Like these early pushes, the Heimdall rushes, stuff like that. What do you guys see the trend as on both
Well, I
platforms?
think most people on Voobly definitely. I think most people know it's safer to boom. Like if you make one mistake trying to play like with an aggressive, where you're trying to go for an aggressive strat, that's game over for you. But if you make a few mistakes when you're booming, it's not so prevalent, I would say,
Sure.
because you've got the strong economy behind you to support it. So I think
Yeah, applies to EE as well.
Same thing with
yeah,
CE.
I think the maps probably had a big impact as well. Like a lot of the resource placement became a lot safer.
So it's pretty boomy then. How much overlap do you? Well, so Hagrit, how much overlap do you notice with extended edition players and Voobly players? Because I know Joe mentioned before. I don't know if that was early on or once we started this video, but Joe mentioned that he excuse me, he switched over to Voobly to get that really highest level of competition. How much overlap do you see between extended edition players playing on Voobly and Voobly players playing on extended edition?
Do you mean in their strategies, playstyle, or?
No, I mean actual players that play on both platforms.
Oh. There's definitely a group of people who switch between the two, but I'd say the majority stick to one. Yeah, I'm not.
I think if you look at all of the strong players that have been on extended edition, most of them have moved straight to Voobly as soon as they discovered it. Same for like Chemo, and I'm sure there's other examples as well that I can't bring off the top of my head right now, but
Chemo was ESO player at first.
Yeah,
and
Chemo's
played
an
on
ESO
EE
player.
for a bit.
Yeah, he's
yeah,
also,
but he played E a lot, didn't he? That's when he sort of became a good player, I think.
Gotcha. Well, he was always pretty good on back in the day, but I think right before I left, or maybe I don't know, around that time, I remember Chemo becoming pretty darn successful on Voobly. But I mean, anyways, we're not going to talk about chemo. That's for sure. that down little. Rob. Anyways, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of chemo and the play style that he incited. You know. Anyways. Um, well, I kind of lost my train of thought.
Player overlap.
Player overlap. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, so when people reach like a certain point as an EE player, like they're able to get high rated and beat most players, they often start, like if they're interested in having more competition, they generally start looking for more, and then they either go on both platforms or even switch completely to Voobly.
I wanna kind of follow this tangent a little bit. What is what's the ladder like on Extended Edition? I mean, I know we're mainly talking about the metagame and whatnot, but still in the competitive scene in general, what's the ladder like for Extended Edition? Is it very active? Is it competitive?
I think the main issue with EE for me is once you get to a certain rating, like once you get over 2,000, it makes it so difficult to find any rated games.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's too much of a struggle. Like people just don't really look for them at that point. So you either have to like manually like try and ask the people beforehand and like have pre-arranged games, which kind of defeats the point of a quick search feature.
Yep. How many purely, because I really have no idea, how many purely, that you guys are aware of, purely EE players have gone over to Voobly and been successful?
So Sun Tzu is currently making a pretty good impression on Voobly while being an EE only player at first.
His name is Sun Tzu?
Yeah, Sun Tzu 2A or something.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Sun Tzu Art of War, I know.
He's currently ranked #1 on Voobly.
Oh, is he?
Snap, is that right?
Oh,
That's
nice.
cool.
Yeah, he beat me and Icaro to take those points.
Oh, are you
#1.
serious?
And
Yeah.
Icaro is another person actually. I don't know how much he played before EE.
I think
But-
he's been around for a while.
I reckon.
I don't think he was that good yet until EE, so he was definitely an EE only player for a while. Some people have switched but have been, the similar level as well, instead of climbing
Sure.
like myself. I mean, I'm not a Voobly only player. I still play EE, but yeah. Another player / streamer was Diablon. He still streams every now and then. He was at first only streaming EE games at a semi-high level. Switched to Voobly, and one day he's 1600, next day he's 1800. So it's a bit. He plays very unorthodox, but that's cool.
Is he still around?
Yeah, he still streams sometimes. I think I saw him stream like yesterday or 2 days ago.
Oh, okay, cool.
Spanish dude. He doesn't speak English, but we all love him.
Chowder as well. I think he's permanently moved to Voobly as well.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think it's permanently, because the last few weeks that I've been playing, I've played both Voobly and Extended Edition games with him, and a couple of other guys too.
Oh, maybe he plays both still. Yeah.
Yeah.
Blue transition to Voobly. See their skill improves quite quickly.
Oh, is that?
Generally.
I know we're talking a lot about Voobly right now, but from a purely competitive perspective, it is. I mean, there's definitely the highest level of competition there. But by all means, like these players, they're still the games that I've played on Extended Edition. There's still plenty of talented players that I'm sure they play on both platforms. I don't know if there's anybody at the highest level that only plays on Extended Edition, but I mean, there's definitely talented players on both sides.
I think as well is like on Extended Edition you can't go back and watch like all the old school recorded games, so it's a lot more difficult for like the new school players to improve without any recs.
Yeah.
So the only way for them to get those recorded games is to go to Voobly.
That's a good point. Or they just need to create. I mean, we just need to create these legendary high-level games, on extended edition rather than only having, high-level games on Voobly.
But the high-level players on Voobly have no incentive to play on extended edition.
I know.
Like,
I'm just saying.
I would happily play on EE if it wasn't so laggy. I think that is the future of like this game series, but until they fix all of the bugs, it's never going to happen.
Sure.
Like, there's always been like this discussion about which platform is like better or better for something, and it's sad to say that Voobly is currently the better platform, even though it doesn't really have much of a future to work towards. It's already like, all right, Voobly is this, and there's not much else you can expect from it. Whereas EE is like the gateway to more players. It's on Steam. It's accessible. Like,
yeah, for new players coming in, just to click it and download it off Steam with no effort it's easy.
Yeah.
Whereas to play it on Voobly, it's such an effort just to
technical
install
issues.
the game and all the bugs. Because running on Windows 10 is horrible now. That would just put most players off straight away, I think.
I will say, in defense of the possible future on Voobly, we mentioned the Forgotten Empires group. They're doing work. They did Tail of the Dragon for AoM, but they're mainly focusing on Age of Empires 2, and they've done a lot with Age of Empires 2. They've done a lot, and that scene, that game, and that community, it's growing like crazy, and it's really better than it's ever been. So I'm not gonna be giving a huge shout out to Age of Empires 2 too much. They're kind of our competition for player base a little bit, but Forgotten Empire, they're able to do a fair amount of work with Age of Empires 2, so it's not completely impossible. But I think I'm gonna agree that Steam is definitely a more viable location for future.
The expansions that Forgotten Empires made are on Steam, so.
But I think if you look on Steam and you try and play Age of Empires 2, that it's the same as it is on Age of Mythology. The competitive community, they all play on Voobly.
So one more thing that differs between AoM and AoE is that the Steam version and the Voobly version are actually compatible with each other.
That's true. Yeah, I was just going to mention that.
That is
true.
a major point. And that's something that AoM will not achieve because the state EE is in and the changes that have been made.
But why is the player base for Age of Empires 2, why do they not play on Steam? Surely that's the future of the game is there.
I think it's just a bad taste. Initially it was poorly released, and it's been improved, but it's, I don't know, like...
Because I've played a few
HD
games online about it.
Game too.
It plays quite nicely when I've looked at it.
Yeah, I just think that's because the release, but the release was kind of poor. People.
I suppose with Voobly, it's quite easy for most players. I suppose people just stick to what they know.
I think that's generally what it is, sticking to what you know. Generally, but I mean, a huge part is that since Voobly kind of already has this big player base for AoE 2, bringing that or patching the HD version of AoE 2 so that it's compatible with Voobly, I think that kind of really, I think it really stunted a lot of potential for Steam in the long run, at least for that game specifically. Honestly, I think that it would be huge. I mean, like Hagrit mentioned, it doesn't seem really possible for us to do the same with AoM, because there just isn't the continued development for Extended Edition and Tail of the Dragon. The games are just too different, it seems. But I think that would be a huge step for us, would be to have Extended Edition and compatible with Voobly. To kind of mesh the player bases together a little bit more, you know? Yeah. Because it's still kind of a separate but equal, not really separate but equal, but I mean there's a definite distinction between the two.
So by that, do you mean you'd want to be able to play the Chinese expansion on Voobly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that would have much impact? Because I don't think what the game needs is another expansion. I think it needs one
polishing.
place where all of the players can play together and not have these split communities
Yeah.
that we have at the minute.
Well,
I think that's the big thing.
Of course, and I think it's not purely the main benefit would not be the Chinese, you know. And even as a Norse player, I would love to have those Bogsvagier archers, you know, available to me on Voobly in the base game. But yeah, I mean, it's not like the main feature would be, you know, the features of the expansions. But I think having both features, the combined player base plus the extras that have been added, I think that would be, in my opinion, I think it'd be really awesome.
I mean, I think if the patch team wanted to, they could probably create the Chinese expansion on Voobly themselves and just do it from scratch themselves, like with a mod or something. I think that would be possible, but I don't think it's
No,
worth the
actually.
time.
Not exactly, because the only way that would be possible is through replacing an existing Civ.
Could you not
But, yeah.
just reskin it all, or is that not possible?
I mean, it's more about being able to select your Civ,
Yeah.
like having that all work. Like, you have your menu with the gods, that's just 12 slots. There's no real practical way to make that 15 and make that all work behind the scenes with just what people are capable of doing currently. You need engine work for that, that's all. But you can't do
I
that.
can see JJ in the chat here saying replace Atlantean.
Yes.
I think that's a good idea. Swap Atlantean for Chinese.
You know, I don't care who you are. I'm, you know, or how offended you get. I'm gonna agree with that. You're here.
The thing is, Chinese might be more abusive than Atlantean. Who knows?
I mean, if you get to make the patch, you can probably like tone it down a bit or rebalance the Civ, right? So.
True.
Yeah.
Well, before we get too far down that line, I want to kind of go back a little bit and see if we can cover, if there's any more ground that we specifically want to cover in regards to balance and differences between the two platforms, to kind of keep the theme of, you know, this video fairly centralized, if you know what I mean. I don't know, Hagrit, how much have you played on Voobly? Have you played a fair amount? Like, how familiar are you with the metagame between the two platforms?
I've played maybe total like 200, a little bit less than that, 1v1s, and the odd team game here and there. I don't know if that's enough to classify me as like, you know, familiar with the game, but...
I'd say familiar enough. What do you think the main differences are between the two platforms? Metagame-wise.
Huh.
I think the main thing is the maps are pretty significantly different. Like the resource placement, I would say.
True.
Like on Extended Edition, it's very, very defensively placed.
Mm-hmm.
On Voobly, it's definitely more of a mix, which is nice. Some maps you'll have a safe gold, some maps you'll have to go all out just to secure your second gold mine.
Sure.
Well, but I think in terms of meta, I think
it's
stuff like on Voobly, like, well, you have things like the centaurs, which are now 3-shot a villager instead of 2-shot, so you don't see those; they're not as prevalent anymore.
But they still are on EE, but they're not as good as they were on EE, as they were originally compared to EE, because they have a little bit less speed, which is another change. But they're still 2-shot villagers, so it's still good. But,
yeah, I think the 3-shot on a villager makes quite a big impact. You don't really see it. Yeah. They're not really used a lot anymore, centaurs.
Okay. It seemed like Zeus, that was a huge, that was the main meta. I think when I stopped playing, there were tons of Zeus players, everybody did the same old, you know, centaur raiding bullcrap and, you know, into an early Hephaestus, and then bam, abusing Hephaestus.
Zeus has been changed massively.
Really?
Restoration's no longer as strong as it used to be. Hoplites don't deal as much damage to buildings as they used to.
And this is from the patch.
I don't think that was changed. I think that's still the same.
Well, not for 3.0, but from the base version of the game, like all of these things have been changed.
Okay.
Is that actually true? I didn't know about that. I thought there wasn't.
What, the hoplites from no patch? No, they definitely have less bonus damage versus buildings now, and Athena's restoration, is weaker.
Yeah, Resto was weaker, but I didn't realize that.
I'm pretty sure it was. Maybe JJ can confirm that. I think as well, Bellerophon is now weaker than he used to be.
Yeah, that was
Stuff
probably
like
one of the major
Underworld.
nerfs for late game Zeus anyway. Bellerophon.
Underworld, you can't repair it as incredibly fast as you used to be able to.
Excellent. I think that was absolutely retarded. The ability to repair Underworld, I think, was stupid in the first place because it's not that way in vanilla, the base game of vanilla AoM.
You can't repair Underworld in there?
No, that's a feature of the Titans expansion.
Huh.
I think you should be able to repair it, but you know,
Not at
I think that the rate it's at now is definitely fair.
Same for walls. Walls have been like nerfed in repair rate massively as well.
Oh really?
But that's on both Voobly and EE.
Well, yeah. Talk to me about walls because I mean, Joe, you mentioned that extended edition maps kind of elicit more boomy play styles. Of course, part of that is kind of walling off and safely booming. So, walls were, if I remember right, it just seemed to me like walls were huge back when I was playing before. What's the difference now, or is there a difference?
Well, I think the main thing was walls used to be able to repair them so quickly. Like, say for example, if you had like a Norse player trying to raid you. They have no way to break through that wall because they have no archers to shoot over the top and kill the villagers repairing. So you could just sit there with 2 villagers, and unless they have like 20 Hersa or something, they can't break through that single wall, which is like just ruins the game completely. So they've changed that now. So the repair rate for wall is definitely been considerably nerfed.
And that's on Voobly, right?
Yeah, they also they try to increase the cost of walls to make them like people abuse them less. I think I don't know. I think it didn't. I don't think it makes a difference because people are still going to make walls regardless. I think.
Sure.
Unless you make them cost an absolutely ridiculous amount. So they ended up putting the cost of walls back, I think, to a middle ground somewhere.
Yeah.
So they're not that expensive, but.
So how about extended edition? Is there lots of walling on extended edition?
Yeah, probably about the same amount as Voobly, but not so much in like. I would say only really the 1v1s. Team games, I don't see much.
Okay.
I don't really know why. They probably should.
Good.
If they're not walling in team games, it's probably because they're not high enough level to use them. Yeah.
Screw walls. You hear me? Screw walls.
But the repair rate, like, there's another change that hasn't been mentioned about walls. So that's hack armor. It used to be 65%. It's reduced to 50% in EE and 45% in Voobly, so you can do more damage with units.
That's a nice change, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know about that actually.
So honestly, there's plenty of changes between the little bit of patching that's been done for extended edition and the Voobly balance patches. We could do videos on those specifically, and I think I probably will in the future, especially when like this 3.0 patch for Voobly kind of gets a lot more gameplay and whatnot. Has there been a tournament on this 3.0 patch?
I think there's been a couple already, hasn't there?
Oh, really?
The winter tournament.
The winter tournament, and I suppose the summer tournament was a bit too early for that.
Well, if it was released in November, that's a little bit after summer.
Yeah. I think it's probably just the winter tournament, the most recent one.
Okay, so I'm gonna let my bias interject here. So again, by trade I'm a Norse player, right? And so I mean we all know that in general Odin and Thor are not played at a competitive level. They haven't for quite a while, and but Loki can kind of with Hersia rating. So talk to me about the metagame for Norse these days.
I think it's only in team games that you're really going to see Norse, to be honest. I think any Norse player playing 1v1s like at a high level is just going to give up and play another god.
Sure.
Like, I think Shelty is a good example of that. The last tournament that we played, the first game, Shelty.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so the first game in the tournament, he picks Loki against me, and I countered him with Set. Then after that, he refuses to play Norse again because you can't beat Set at a high level with Norse. It's impossible.
One thing that's worth mentioning though with Norse is the Odin meta that's been developed since the patches mostly is Ulfsark rating against Atlanteans.
Is that, I mean, how viable is that?
The matchup for
I think
like Odin against Uranus used to be like a free win for Uranus almost. But now with the Ulfsark rating, I'd say it's pretty even, so that's good.
Even?
Yeah.
Well, I'd say on high hunt maps it's definitely even. Low hunt maps, you're still at a
Yeah,
disadvantage.
okay, low hunt maps aren't that great.
I think
That's
water
fun for
maps,
Ulf's
I'd say water maps probably Norse is favored. Maybe I want to say.
Oh,
It depends
really?
on which water map. I'd say maybe on Anatolia, Norse would be favored. Not so much Medit.
Okay.
Then again, Njord's buff also help. I'm not sure actually about the water matchup of that.
I
But
think it's quite a close one, yeah.
Well, what about on Extended Edition? Are there many high-level or successful? I won't say high-level. I'll say successful. Are there many successful Norse players on Extended Edition?
Loki's definitely been pretty successful.
Uh-huh.
Like the player I mentioned earlier, Diabolon, the streamer, he is mainly Loki only.
Oh,
and
okay.
Been successful with that. Thomas Shelby on EE. He's also a Voobly player, or was. I don't see him anymore, but he used to play only Loki.
Shelty? No, Thomas Shelby.
Shelby. Yes,
Oh,
Shelby.
I remember that guy. That's right. He's
I
on
think
Voobly
he's still
now. Or
Steam.
He's on
Yeah, he
Steam now.
plays extended edition now because I've seen him making little YouTube videos here and there.
Oh, okay,
yeah, I think-
cool.
Yeah, he used to play a lot in EE. He then stopped for a while. Now he made a couple of videos. I don't see him on anymore though since that.
Okay.
Yeah, he was doing like little Loki tutorial guides, which was quite cool.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
But yeah, he taught me how to play like a decent Loki, so that's cool.
Cool.
There was something I thought about doing as well for Egyptian at some point, is doing like little guides, since there's nothing out there.
But now, hang on. We're not done talking about Norse yet. What about? I mean, aside from what about Thor? Because, I mean, okay, Odin can, in my opinion, Ulf rating. I mean, that's yes, Odin has the upgrade for the faster Ulfsarks, but if you're expecting it, I don't think it's as strong when you expect it.
I mean,
Ulfsark rating's been around
I think
forever on vanilla, but the thing is, it hasn't been a popular strategy, so it's like the surprise factor that really gets you on the back on the defensive side, and then it's strong afterwards. But if it's
the reason why it works for Odin is building town centers and the passive regeneration that Odin now has. So the regeneration that Odin has been changed to heal. Like the healing rate is lower because if units were standing still, it would heal 10 times as fast, and when moving, it would be really bad. But now they made the healing rate to be about a fourth of that, but it's passively, like through doing running and attacking, they still heal the same rate.
And is that for which platform is that for?
For Voobly.
Okay. So is Ulf rating, is that still a thing? Is that a thing on Extended Edition as well?
Yeah, probably not as much, but yeah.
Are there really many? I mean, I know I already kind of asked this, but it seems like Loki's really only viable competitively over there. But are there any like Odin or Thor players over there?
There's some Thor players. I don't really see any Odin players that don't also play another Norse. Other Norse more.
I think if you look at tournament history on like Voobly and so on, the winners of it, I don't remember the last time a Norse Spain won a tournament.
Yeah.
If ever, to be honest.
I mean,
which says it all.
I mean, I hosted a tournament format EE League. That's my Twitch channel name. But in that tournament, there has been. I mean, Thomas Shelby won it with Loki, so in one of the seasons.
Okay.
But it's EE, so the level is a little bit lower. So,
But even so, Shelby, I remember him on Voobly. He's by all means, he was a really good He was pretty successful on Voobly as well. I mean, he was one of the higher rated players on Voobly, if I remember right. I don't know how
Yeah.
well or how, adamant he was on playing the ladder, but I remember him as a good player on Voobly for sure.
Yeah, I remember him
Yeah, he
being
was.
a solid like 1800 player at least.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, I think Norse in general, I think they're definitely not the best god at high level in 1v1, but some of the horribly imbalanced matchups they had, definitely a lot more fair now. Like against Greek, for example, you don't have to deal with the Athena rush that you used to. It's definitely a lot more easy to fend that off.
Don't
And
know
the
why I
centaur
forgot to
raiding
mention,
and everything.
but Sun Tzu is a Norse player, so.
So one question
Tzu
I have
plays
for you
Thor
guys
and Loki.
is, even though there's these little bit of balance changes that make Norse, or the matchups, like you said, Joe, a little bit less severe, is that enough to actually elicit people to play Norse at a high level? Because it doesn't seem that way.
I think just the mechanics of Norse, I don't think you'll ever be able to get out to a high level of like what is one of the best like tiers of gods. I don't know if it's possible.
How come? What? Expound on that.
I don't know. Think just like having to build your like the town centers build a lot slower than other civilizations. You have to put all your army into building town centers, so you can't be attacking and building town centers at the same time. Stuff like that. I mean, they fixed some of the major issues, like the oath Sark harass you used to be able to do. Now you can put your oath in passive stance. So
Yeah, with the Skraeling
that
Sark.
definitely helps. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's definitely helped, but I think just a few like some things you just can't really fix without completely upsetting the entire balance of the game.
Well, so I've had an idea for a possible balance change for Norse that might make a big impact. And this shout out to an old AOL buddy of mine, AOL Obesity. He started playing a little bit on Extended Edition as well. Anyways, he was a hardcore Zeus player back in the day, and he and I were playing a bunch of games back and forth, and eventually I was like, screw this, you play, and I'm as a Norse player, I was like, screw this, you play Norse, I'll play Zeus, we'll see what happens. And I mean, I was not a Greek player at the time at all, and so it was a scrappy, crappy game, but I ended up winning. And his main frustration was that he was saying that Norse units are just these paper units, that they just die so quickly. So I'm wondering if you do something like boosting the base HP of the Norse military units, and maybe do something like the line upgrades, like medium and heavy and champion. Maybe they add more hit points, so there's kind of a progressive increase. What do you guys think about that idea?
I think it's possible, but you'd have to be so careful with the changes you make because you do slightly too much and they're completely overpowered.
Of course, yeah, of course. But I'd like to see
And I
some
think
play testing. Like that.
it's hard to balance Norse because Norse in 1v1 and team games is like two completely different things. In 1v1 they're one of the weakest civs, but in team games they're generally regarded like the strongest. So if you make them too strong in 1v1, then it's going to completely blow them out of proportion in team games.
True, of course.
So I think maybe you just have to accept that they're not going to be the best in 1v1. But I think at the point they're at now, they're definitely playable. They're just not as strong as Egyptian or Greek.
Even Oranos.
So
The thing is, I don't think Norse is that bad against Greek. It's really only Zeus that is good against Norse. The other two Greeks are like, there's even matchups between all three of the Norse. I'd even say Loki is favored in most of those. But the other two Norse against Hades and Poseidon is, in my opinion, a perfectly balanced matchup.
Do you think even with like chef style Ares rush onto Norse, do you think it's balanced?
Yeah. Do you think Ares rush is overpowered?
No, I don't know. That's why I asked. You're the Poseidon expert here.
I mean, I haven't seen Ares rushes in a while actually.
Well, I
Um,
think Chef was the only one who really did them.
yeah, I was the only one that was actually successful with. I mean, I tried them. I had partial success with them, but in the end, I still lost against Thomas Shelby. But yeah,
Okay, so considering the how far we've gotten with this video, honestly, as everybody knows, we could go on and on and on and on and on.
yeah,
I think as for now, this is a decent first episode. So since I'm streaming this at the same time, if there's anybody out there that wants to throw in, um, we're gonna do just a couple minutes of Q&A real quick. So if there's somebody out there that wants to throw in a question, throw in a comment, whatever, feel free to do so. And we can kind of continue this on for a few more minutes, and then we'll cut it off and continue it in another episode.
Yeah, I agree with what No Mercy said in the chat. Is Eggy is the issue for Norse, not so much
yeah.
Greek. Definitely Zeus and Egyptian are the main issues.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Like Set, I don't think you can beat Set really. I think it's so difficult.
Hmm.
I think Ra as well is so strong against Norse. I think Isis is definitely beatable now. But
ISIS,
maybe not Odin. I think versus Odin, Isis can abuse Anibites. It's so easy now. Like Anubis on Voobly is so overpowered. But they continue to buff it, which I'm not complaining about, but I'm not sure it's the right direction for it.
do you think that? Well, so here's an idea that I have. It seems like at the very beginnings of this game, um, Thor was played like crazy, and Isis was also played like crazy. And it seems like Thor and Isis, people figured out how to play against those gods. And so now the kind of anti-play or counterplay is really figured out, which is one reason why, Norse is not successful anymore. That how kind of the metagame and everything has progressed. So many people played those gods that now there's a lot of testing and figuring out how to play against them. I think that might contribute to one reason why maybe Isis isn't as strong anymore as she was seen to be in the past. I don't know. What do you guys think about that idea?
I think Isis, the main reason that a lot of people stopped playing her is because of the Ancestors Eclipse change, like the original one. I think that put a lot of people off
True.
because that's like the bread and butter for most ISIS players.
Yeah,
You just go
definitely.
for an easy, fast
And,
heroic push and just win the
and it
game.
was it was admittedly fun to do that as well.
Yeah, that was it's great fun to do that. Just that all-in sort of gameplay, and then you change it, and suddenly you're having to do like a boomy sort of ISIS style, which is just not as fun. Which is why I've like for me playing ISIS, I've started just going Anubis like most games now. Because some of the changes they made to Anubis are pretty strong. Like the Necropolis change is now a
Mm.
30% favor boost instead of 10%. I think it was originally,
Yeah,
and it's also a lot cheaper as well as the Anubite upgrade is a lot cheaper. I think that's. I think ISIS is still fun to play, but it's just a different meta.
Sure, for sure. Well, it doesn't look like we're really getting many questions. The one question we got was from Chrono, and he said, "Who is guest number two, or whatever he said."
He's saying Nerf or Uranus, yeah. I think Uranus is quite balanced at the minute, to be honest. I think the main issue I'd say now is Hyperion is a bit too strong on Vuble.
And remind me what that is. Sorry, as the god.
Hyperion is the Chaos god with Chaos god power and
That's
the
right. Yeah,
Satanist.
that's
So
right. Yeah.
Chaos now is you automatically get a free myth unit as well as like I'm not sure the exact
four
stats on it, but
four normal units, one myth unit guaranteed, as long as they're in
yeah.
range, of course.
So that applies to like 4 elephants, though, doesn't it? If you're
Yeah.
against Egyptian,
So we
which
have a
is insane. And
indeed.
also satyrs as well, which
They
they're
were
not as strong as
buffed.
they were originally, but yeah, they're definitely really strong still.
Okay. What do you guys? We have kind of a comment that classical age myth units are not strong except for Einherjar. What do you guys think about that?
I disagree.
I disagree with that. Yeah.
I disagree too. General, that was from General. Let's see, General Elfried. I think we all three of us disagree with it.
Valkyrie is a really good classical myth unit, but in the end, it's not so much the myth unit that sucks, it's the god itself is too easy to be abused.
Mhm.
I'd even
Well, I think
argue
as
Valkyries are
well
better than Einarjars in almost all aspects.
for Norse to have all of that food is quite difficult to be able to afford Valkyries. I
It
think
depends on the
that's
map.
probably the main thing.
If you have a lot of food, then you can afford some, like a lot of safe hunt.
And I think, yeah, but I think most players put that food into their actual like infantry instead.
True.
Or age ups, yeah. But trolls,
Yeah,
however, are probably the best myth unit. As weak as they seem, they're so easy to mass, and especially if you're being rushed, like trolls are so good to defend against rushes, especially against like Zeus or something.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
just
true.
put all your villagers on
Definitely
wood and
underrated.
just mash them.
Very underrated.
Well, I was
I
gonna
think at the
say that.
minute,
Sorry.
no, go on.
I was just gonna say the classical age myth units. It really depends on how you use them. For example, I mean, talking about trolls defending against like an Athena rush, they're extremely helpful. Same with the Stymphalian birds. Um, Trying to fight those trolls can be pretty darn helpful.
Yeah.
So it really depends on how you use the myth unit. Archers and Tox and Minotaurs, that can be super strong, a super strong combo. So it really
I
depends on how you
think
use them.
Minotaurs are pretty. You rarely see those. I think.
These days, really, why do you think that is?
I
People just
think,
go hoplites.
yeah, I think it's quite easy to kill the Minotaurs. There's only a few matchups where they're beneficial. I think
It's only
the
against
best
Odin and
classical
Thor,
myth
but
units.
even then, people just prefer to go more hoplites than more minotaurs.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the only
I
myth
do think
units
it's
that are
viable.
that prevalent is Anubites. I think Sphinx are quite good,
Yeah,
especially in
definitely.
team games. They're really strong.
Hmm.
Prometheans are really good. I think that's most of them really. Centaurs as well.
What do you guys think? So there's another one from Uji. He says, you said that Ares Rush doesn't have much success. What makes it less effective than other options?
I think
Well, it's a
because
rush, and it's not
yeah,
nearly as good as an Athena rush because there's no restoration. Pestilence is weaker, and Cyclops are slow as hell.
I
I
think
don't
that
know.
with a pest rush, if you it can be super strong, but I think you have to be really aggressive after that. Because I mean, you can stop the military production, but with auto queue and whatnot and a defender's advantage, if you're not really aggressive and, really take advantage of it, it could be killer, but it's not, I think it's not quite as reliably strong as using restoration as a god power.
I
Yeah,
think as
and
well the
there's
fact
under
that
the pestilence, splitting your buildings, just getting an extra one up for after the pestilence to spend all your resources faster.
Hmm.
There's plenty of counters or like ways around pestilence.
and
Yeah,
also Cyclops are so hard to spam, and then when you do get them, they're so clumsy and slow
Yeah.
that it just doesn't seem like it's worth it.
yeah, definitely. No Mercy has an idea rather than a question. He says maybe we're just lacking Norse experts. Don't blame the god. I think he
Where's
has a
Baker?
point, but at the same time, I think Joe also is right in that it's kind of I'll call it a structural issue with the civilization.
I
What do
mean,
you guys
if you
think?
look at every Norse expert in the past, I think they've all complained about it, and none of them have been able to win tournaments with Norse.
Yeah,
I think the only players who could, you know, take it to that next level is Mister and Magic, but
hmm,
they're just a different level to everyone else.
sure.
Like all the Norse experts, like Shelty, Brickhead, players like Berserker. I don't know who else.
Count
Sure,
von Count's recently making a comeback.
Who?
yeah,
Who?
Count von Count.
Ah, yeah, yeah. He hasn't
but
he
even
hasn't played the Thor at a top level for like in a serious
Yeah, it's been
manner
a
in a
long
long,
time.
long time though.
well, he's playing ISIS at the moment, So
Oh,
even he's opting not to
damn.
go with Norse.
In fact, I think he gave up Thor in a competitive like ladder, playing the ladder. I think he gave up Thor a long time ago.
I'm not surprised. It's just you just get abused by too many matchups, and it's just not fun.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so Uji has. I think we're gonna go with one more, and then we can call this. We can conclude this bad boy. Uji going back to the pestilence and Cyclops. He says, "Yeah, Cyclops not trying to pick a moving unit, failing, then trying again, and failing is basically idle the whole fight. Okay, it's basically idle the whole fight. Could this be changed at all, or would it make the insta-killing special too strong?"
It's possible to change that, but as I say, it would probably become too broken if every time he picks something up, it's a confirmed grab and he throws it,
Hmm.
and insta kill every time. I don't know. It's probably too strong. There's not really much of a middle ground there.
I think it would make sense though if as soon as he picks up the unit, then they can't escape anymore.
Yeah,
But I agree that it could definitely be too broken.
yeah.
But I think it's definitely something that could be tested, and we should maybe give it a go.
And like people are saying, they're expensive. We've already commented that they're slow, so I don't really think that buffing the special ability, the special attack, I don't really think that's enough to incite people to play Ares more and actually go for Cyclops as a strategy.
Maybe make Cyclops cost wood. Try that out.
Oh man,
That might work.
I'd go Ares every game.
Not buffing,
Could be
just less
fun.
buggy, Uji says. Yeah, I suppose, yeah. Again, I still don't think that's hard. That's enough to like change the meta.
I don't know. I think Cyclops against a good player, like you're never going to be able to pick up the unit as long as they micro properly.
Hmm.
Yeah, but like there's being saying, like it's not so much intended for the pickup. It's more like a classical edge siege unit that you're trying to use. But yeah, it's just really expensive to get enough of them out there, and like ranged heroes deal with them pretty much with no problem. So
Yep,
Did they reduce the favor cost for Cyclops? I
they
feel like
did,
they did.
yeah, but that's not enough, I don't think, to make them spammable like Minotaurs would be.
they're 250 food, right?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest issue. But changing that to wood, I don't think that's a good change either.
I think probably the speed as well. It's just they're too slow and too clumsy.
Yeah, definitely. Alrighty, guys. I think this is a good place to call it quits. Again,
Yep,
we could talk about meta and balance and like compare the platforms. We could talk about it for hours and hours. So we're just gonna
I'd
have to
love to.
well, we can leave more for future episodes. How about that?
Yeah.
Um, um, so honestly, I think let's start to conclude this. I think I think let's see. I'm just trying to think. I think it's if you guys, anybody that's in the comments of the video or on the stream, by all means, if you guys have ideas for future topics that we could do more episodes on, by all means, let me hear them, and we can continue this on, and kind of make it a. I'm styling this whole idea after the whole state of the game thing that StarCraft 2 does. I think it's a cool idea to, I don't know, I mean, if people aren't playing a whole heck of a lot, or if somebody comes back after a long time of inactivity, I mean, it could actually be a resource for people to kind of literally get up to speed on what's going on. But it's also kind of fun to talk to people from the community and get some feedback and some discussion and discourse on what's going on. You know what I mean? So, I say let's get some more future episodes going. Give us some ideas, and yeah, we'll get some more guests on into the future and get some more opinions in the mix, and it'll be great. So more streams, yes. General Elfried, I'll also be streaming as well, making some more content and whatnot. So yeah, let's call it quits for this episode. Again, I'm gonna a shout out to Joe and Hagrit for joining me on this episode on the episode debut. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties that we experienced beforehand, but eh, It happens. So hopefully that wasn't too annoying for you guys. Yeah. Anyways, I appreciate you guys taking the time to try to get something going with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been enjoyable.
Well,
Yep.
so
Definitely look forward to the next time.
yeah, and I mean, let's do more in the future. So both Joe and Hagrit are on Twitch. I know Joe. I don't. Let's do a quick shout out to the both of you. I know Hagrit, your Twitch handle is EE League. Joe, I'm not 100% sure what yours is.
I think mine is just DoD. I am Joe, something like that. I think.
With an
Okay.
underscore, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
there's like
I'm sure
3
people have seen
underscores,
it
Joe.
about.
Okay.
Stupid name of
No,
yours.
there's only two.
No, but there's a one in the middle too, right? So
Oh, yeah.
Well, anyways, so check out their channels for sure. Good stuff coming from them as well. So, yeah, let's call it quits for now. I appreciate it, guys. We'll talk to you later.
peace.
Right.
Alrighty, and everybody that's been watching the stream, again, I apologize for I apologize for the technical difficulties. It happens. We're figuring this thing out. It happens, whatever. But yeah, I'm gonna sign off for now. Again, I hope this was fairly interesting. It'd be cool to get me some ideas into the future if you guys are willing, and we can do more stuff like this in the future. So yeah, I will talk to you later, people of the stream. Thank you again.